Welcome to the Mo Show Live, everybody. I'm Morris Lilienthal. Looking forward to another great guest and great topic today. I'm excited to have on as our guest today Blake Mathis, who is the Director in Strategic Partnerships and Solutions with One Generation Away. Now, you may recognize Blake if you've watched a lot of Mo shows in the past. Blake is a former guest. We had him on several years ago to talk about the Monrovia Volunteer Fire Department, and I'm excited to have him back on to talk about One Generation Away. Blake, good to talk to you. Great to catch up with you before we went live. How are you doing?
Fantastic, Morris. I really appreciate being able to be here. Things are good. It's good to see your show back on as well.
Well, I'm excited to do this. There's so many great causes and great organizations out there, and I'm always excited to share that out with folks and learn more about things that are going on in our community and to allow that to be shared with others. Blake, talk to me a little bit about what One Generation Away is, and can you kind of tell us a little bit maybe about what your mission is?
Absolutely. So, One Generation Away is a phenomenal organization I have the opportunity to be part of. We're headquartered out of Franklin, Tennessee, just up the road from Huntsville, 60 or 80 miles. The organization officially 501c3 wise is about a decade over. This is our 11th year. The organization actually started a couple of years before that with Chris and Elaine Whitney, who are the founders and still very active and run the organization today. And basically, they started one day 12, 13 years ago. They had this in their heart to help people who had food insecurities get food. And basically, they got their vehicle, went to a Whole Foods and talked to them about any extra food they had that they may be moving out or needed to get rid of to bring new stock in. It was all still good stuff, and they loaded them up. They gave them a car full of food. They said there was no room left to hardly breathe in the car, and they were amazed. And of course, they had no building, no organization. It was just them and their heart that drove them. And they went down to a street and basically just started going door to door and saying, "Do you need any food?" And the response was overwhelming. And little did they know that would turn into a huge operation, feeding thousands upon thousands, or tens of thousands of people for free for a decade or more to come. And it all started in a Hyundai Santa Fe, 13 years ago up in Tennessee.
Well, great things start that way, and a lot of times it's just people seeing a need and trying to find a way and acting to fill that need. And it certainly sounds like that they did that, and then that has just compounded over the last 13 years. Talk to me. So you mentioned in the Franklin area and then you're here in the North Alabama, Huntsville, Madison County area. Talk about what geographic areas that One Generation Away serves.
So interestingly enough, after they first started doing what they were doing about 13 years ago, within about a year or less, word had got out that they were doing these free food giveaways. They were actually working on doing a mobile food pantry where they went to a parking lot. They ended up within a year or so getting access to like an 18-wheeler full of food. But what happened was they got a phone call, and speaking of geographical locations, they got a phone call after the 2011 tornadoes here in the Alabama area, North Alabama. And it had been told that they could distribute food to large groups of people with ease. They had a system down. And so they were asked to come to the Harvest Monrovia area where the tornadoes had come through, Tony in that area. And they loved the story. I do too. But they walked in, they didn't know anyone. And there's a big table with a bunch of folks around it. And right in the middle of it was a person you may know, Dale Strong. And Dale was the commissioner in the area at that time, now congressman. And they said, our food banks are empty. We have thousands of people without electricity. Their food's going bad. We heard you can help. And so they were blown away, and they had a little funding. And through their contacts they had just developed over the previous year, they were able to feed 6,000 people over the next couple of weeks ongoing. And about 200 shut-ins who couldn't get out to come to the mobile food pantry. So in 2011 is when it came to Alabama, shortly after it started. And so that's how it went from Tennessee to North Alabama. And then, so they've been serving this area ever since. And just a little over a year ago, got a permanent location here with a warehouse to house food and drinks. And also secondary to that, another location is Panama City. So there was an area that was in need there. And so now we have Franklin, Tennessee, North Alabama, and the Panhandle of Florida that is physically served with locations and employees.
I think that's great. It's one of the things that, Blake, I think a lot of people, and I'm probably guilty of this too, don't appreciate how many people in our local communities. And when you think, if you've ever been to North Alabama, the Huntsville community, if you've ever been to Franklin, I went to Franklin recently, and it's very, very, very nice community. You don't perceive, if you don't see like homeless people or just a lot of things like that, just out everywhere, like you might see in a major metropolitan area, that there's a need for these kinds of things there. But there really is, isn't it, Blake?
There is. It's kind of surprising. Since I've joined the organization, I've learned a great deal about that need. I've done lots of volunteer work in different areas, but never in the food insecurity arena or area. And so, I've met lots of people since I joined the team, just in September, October timeframe. It's amazing how many people, even in nice communities, areas that are doing well economically, there are always going to be groups of people and areas of people, for a variety of reasons, whether it be they've lost their job, they've lost a spouse, a child's going through cancer treatment, they just can't get ahead. The list goes on and on and on. And one thing we're big about with One Gen is we don't ask questions. If you need food, you get in our line, our mobile food pantries, even you just drive through it. We'll load your car up with a complete full basket of groceries and won't ask you a question about your job, your income, your background, what's going on in your life. The organization is big about asking if you need someone to pray with you, or if you want someone to talk to just briefly. And people sometimes open up and share a story or two. But there's no questions asked. And those lines that we provide are always full. I mean, they come from all over the county area wherever we're serving. Even in Franklin County, I believe Williamson County is the top 10 wealthiest county in the nation. But the areas that they serve, there is always a need in certain areas. And it's not always just an area, but there are people who may be middle-class earners or higher income, but they go through a lot of problems sometimes with medical treatments or cancer or lost loved ones, and they just need a help for a bit. We call it a season. It's a season of a time in your life that you need some help. And all we want to do is help. That's what we're here for.
Well, and I think that's great, because a lot of people, if you start questioning their needs and questioning whether they really need this resource or not, they may be very hesitant to do that and to do so. I love the way you guys approach that. It's just, we're here if you need us, and show up. And if you got other things that we can help you with, let us know, and we'll see how we can help you. Is what you guys are doing. And one of the things that, when I was reading through your website in preparation for today, that I noticed that I thought was just great, and I see it in so many areas that I deal with as a lawyer, and that is, you're telling people you don't want to have to put people that are in a predicament. Maybe it's a life event, maybe it's a medical emergency, like you said, of having to choose between buying food or paying a necessity like rent or utilities or paying for medicine. And we know a lot of folks have to make those hard choices, and to take the strain and stress of worrying about how to put food on the table away from that family so they can focus on those other things. And that gives them the opportunity to be able to correct the issue that they're having, so they may not need your services in the future.
It's amazing. That's a great topic. I'm glad you mentioned it, because one of the early stories about several people who came through the line with Chris and Elaine, and I'll back up even briefly. They tell the story, so they won't mind me telling it. Years before they founded One Generation Away, due to economic circumstances and job losses, they themselves ended up in a food line. And Elaine talks about having to fill out questionnaires, and it was embarrassing and degrading. And it didn't start 2 years later, but they thought back to when they needed help, and they, it was bad enough asking for the help, but now you had to prove that you needed it. And it was, right. Every organization is different, but they just didn't want that to happen. And it's like, if you need something, when we have it, you will get it. So there were several people in the early part of the organization that had told them while they were picking up at the mobile food pantries, thanking them for what they were doing. And they said, sure, you're welcome. And they said, no, you don't understand. It was either buy groceries today or my medicine, that type of thing. And that was very profound in their early beginning of One Gen. And they, to this day, we talk how important that is. And we see people all the time that have to make that decision. Just Saturday, we had a distribution in Madison, and I did the quick math on the basket of groceries we were giving out was around $300. A full basket of groceries, about $320 that we gave to each family that came through. And that's life altering. I heard a couple of people say they would make it, they were going to stretch that basket of groceries for a month. And most people who don't have a problem with food insecurities can't imagine living off $300 worth of food for a month. But that's what's happening. And these people, they need the help sometimes.
Absolutely. And as we, all experienced, regardless of your socioeconomic background, inflation is out there with home costs and utilities costs, and certainly with food costs and gasoline costs. And so someone that is working a job, trying to get started, or maybe works for more around minimum wage, having that issue is really, really tough to try to pay for groceries for family. And it costs so much to have you guys there to help with that is just tremendous. Talk a minute about, Blake, tell our folks out there, how do you secure the food? So the food that you're giving away for this mobile pantry that you described a while ago, can you first tell us kind of where y'all are getting the food and the types of food that you're getting? Is it, milk, bread? Is it vegetables and meat? Just kind of walk us through that.
So those are great questions. We have a couple of different programs that have been very successful. Just like when Christy and Lane first started 2011 timeframe, out of the back of their car with rescuing food. And so rescuing food is considered food that's being moved to the side or off of a shelf to make room for new food. Doesn't mean it's bad or expired or rotted. It's just there's a inventory issue sometimes. One item may not sell as much as they thought it would be, and they have to replace it and move it off to the side. So there's and in restaurants as well, restaurants, catering events, that food is good food that is not needed for whatever the event they're doing, or the restaurant at the end of the night has excess. And so just so happens 6 days a week in our Franklin office, our teams rescue food 6 days a week. Now that food, since it's usually, some of it has been prepared, not all of it, is usually on a table within 24 hours. It's brought back and either chilled or, and in some cases, and I'll even share one here locally, we're starting to rescue food here. It's taken straight to an organization that can put it out that night, either a pantry or a hot meal food line or soup kitchen, that type of thing. So right. six days a week, they're doing that there. And so that's rescue food. We also get donated food. So, which I guess that's considered donated, but that's a different category with the rescue right. food. Right. So donated food would be an organization or a company, a manufacturer. For example, in our area, we have bottling organizations or companies that give us drinks. Gatorade's a big one. So the companies that own Gatorade will contact One Generation Away for a variety of reasons. And I'll just give you, like, for example, we have new product coming off that we have almost only so much room in the warehouse. We have product that hasn't been moved out yet, and we need to make room for the new product. We have an 18-wheeler full of Gatorade, or what would be an 18-wheeler full of Gatorade, so many pallets. Do you want it? We, of course, use our mission funds and program funds to transport that to one of our warehouses and then distribute it directly out to the community via organizations who need those drinks. And that can be a variety of organizations I'll talk about in a moment. So that's donated items. Recently, a big one that was pretty well known in North Alabama was we received a shipment from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and we received 4 million Hershey Kisses. So that was unusual, but just so happened the chocolate folks needed to donate some food out because for whatever reason, we don't usually ask, we'll take the food. So just around Christmas time, we were able to reward hundreds of organizations and thousands of people with something a little extra in their life, and that was some chocolate. It was unrestricted, and we gave it out to anyone and everyone who wanted it. We even partnered with the folks at Bridge Street and took our truck out to Bridge Street, and anyone who walked by who wanted a bag full of Hershey Kisses got all they wanted. So that was kind of a unique thing.
Yeah.
but it's usually food. That is food, I guess, but it's sweets. But those are items that are donated to us
Yeah.
that we use. And then lastly, the food distributions we talk about, typically speaking, those are all fresh food items that we actually purchase. We have great contacts with wholesalers and the fruits and vegetables before they even get to the retailers. We actually purchase those with funds donated to us and sponsorships for those events. So almost everything on the truck for the actual food distributions is high quality, fresh food that's purchased at an extremely reduced rate. And for example, the truck the other day, the trucks generally are around $150,000 worth of food retail costs. To sponsor that truck with transportation and everything and the purchase all that food is around $7,000. Very minimal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very minimal for what we get. I added up the math, and there were 2 to 3 pallets that equaled $7,000, but we had 36 pallets total. And so for a very minimal amount with our sponsorships and our partnerships, we can get those trucks to a community and feed literally thousands of people over a period of a couple of weeks worth of groceries, and no questions asked.
Folks, if you're just joining us, today's guest on the Mo Show Live is Blake Mathis with One Generation Away, and we've been talking about his organization that is based out of Franklin, Tennessee, but also serves here North Alabama and down in the Florida Panhandle, about how they have mission to help those in need and need that have a need for food and finding ways to help solve that issue for those in these areas. And we've been talking a little bit about how they secure the food, rescue food, partner with other restaurants and grocery stores for that may have excess or surpluses, and farms. I think y'all work with some farmers as well. Let's talk a little bit. You mentioned earlier, Blake, about the food distribution. So let's talk a little bit about how the different ways that you guys get this food out to the community, those in need. And I know one was something you mentioned briefly, and I know that my Rotary Club in Madison has partnered with you guys before to help with the mobile pantry. Talk a little bit about what a mobile pantry is, and if somebody showed up, what they might expect to see, and maybe how they could help volunteer.
Sure. So the first question we get is from recipients and volunteers. How do we find out about these? And of course, all of them are listed out for the rest of the year on onegenaway.com. So on our website is all of our details about those events. Yeah. And so we love volunteers. So typically speaking, we'll set this up in advance. We have organizations, oftentimes there are church groups who will sponsor those events. Just like you mentioned, the Madison Rotary Club, several Rotary clubs support this organization around the tri-state, the multiple states we're in, and other organizations as well. But we coordinate with usually 50 to 300 volunteers. It varies. Saturday was about 150 volunteers who showed up at Discovery Middle. We bring the truck in. The recipients, the people who we're helping, start lining up as early as 4 or 5 a.m. And then we don't distribute until 9. So that tells you if someone's lining up 4 hours before they can get food, how bad do they need it? Think about that. That's something that really hit me my first or second distributions. Like, these people are sitting here for hours waiting on food. And for those of us who happen to be in a position that we don't need that, that's hard to comprehend. But we coordinate, we bring a truck and a forklift with the volunteers who are there, offload usually 25 to 30 pallets of food, starting around 7:30 in the morning. This is on a Saturday. So we get there around 7:30. About an hour and a half worth of bagging each of those pallets into 300 bags each. So we're going to do 300 baskets of groceries. So if there's 900 boxes of mac and cheese, each family would get 3. So, and that's all coordinated ahead of time. Just like the other day, there were 6 cans of green beans per basket. And so that type of thing. We'll have fresh bananas, fruits, apples, oranges, onions, potatoes. Then there's rice and pastas and Rice Krispie treats. And, there are sweets in there, and cereal, chips, drinks, you name it. And so we put all the food into piles in the bags. And then we have 20. It's really interesting to see. We have about 20 grocery carts, and we let 10 cars come through. We load up 10 grocery carts, and they go like an assembly line, one basket to each car. And there's usually 2 people in a basket. They unload the groceries in the recipient's car. They don't have to get out. And They will load their 10 cars. Those 10 cars leave. The other 10 baskets of groceries are already loaded, ready to cycle in like a conveyor belt. 10 more cars pull in. We load them up while the other empty 10 carts are loading, going down the line. So we have volunteers pushing the carts and unloading them. We have different volunteers loading the carts from the piles. Those are we call them shoppers and distributors. And so, like I said, Saturday we had about 150 people. And so we do that for the usually 300 vehicles. That's the amount of food we can get on a semi truck with a basket full of groceries. And by 10:30 or 11 o'clock, we're completely clean. And it's like we were never there. And those 150 people did some amazing volunteer work that day. And they're on about their Saturday. And the people who are recipients are going home and stocking their shelves for a couple of weeks.
That's amazing. That's really awesome. And I shared with you before we went live that I'd heard from some of the members in my club that how organized y'all were, and that it was just a machine, that y'all had a game plan, and it was people were in and out in a very efficient manner. And it's just, makes an easier experience for the volunteers if everything is organized and done and do. And I think you have got some pictures and things that you want to show us here. If you're ready to do that, Blake, I'll add that to the screen if you're ready.
Yeah, go right ahead. Sure. I've got some photos. Let me know when it's up.
Yeah, they're up now, Blake. Folks, if you're looking, Blake's going to share some photos from the mobile pantry distribution that they've done here.
Yeah, so pictures say 1,000 words, and the people who come out, what's crazy is sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. Sometimes it's raining. I mean, it's a variety of issues.
And it's North Alabama, so it'll change in 2 hours completely.
Yes, we have seen that before. But it's amazing how these people from various churches and organizations, we break down the walls of a title of a group or a denomination of a church, and we're all there to serve. Some groups have prayer teams that go out and ask the recipients if they would like to have prayer with them. That's always welcomed. And if they want to talk to someone, they can. And in this picture, you can see the cars in the back left lined up before we are even through with the packaging of the drinks or the food. I know at Athens High School a few months ago, we had over 300 volunteers. The school encouraged the athletic departments, and I mean all of them, the soccer team, the basketball team, the football team, the track team. And these kids came out with the group that was sponsoring. It was a church over there. And it was just absolutely amazing how many people helped do that. In this picture here, you can see the shoppers in the carts filling up their carts to then get in line and hand out the food. But it's just, we encourage volunteerism. That's one big thing. We help the people who need it. But equally as important, we think, is getting the community together to serve the people who need help. Because without that, if me and a couple of people show up, we can't do it by ourselves. There's no possible way. It takes 100+ people to do this. And so we encourage people to come out, join our email list on that website you're showing, and see when the events are going to be, and just participate.
Well, you got me motivated in doing. I just saw one of my fellow Rotarians in Madison. I've seen a couple in some of these pictures here. So I'm inspired to do it. And it's definitely something I'm going to try to get my son to come out with me and do that there. That's where he goes to school, is at Discovery Middle School. So we're certainly familiar with where you're doing this at and do. How do you get the word out about where the mobile pantries are? Is it all on the website there? And do you kind of people word of mouth, I'm sure, too?
Yes. And so one important way, the websites, word of mouth, and another thing I want to mention that we do ongoing between the mobile pantries is in our area in North Alabama, since we physically have a location here now in a warehouse, we are getting those donations to us that we turn around and take out to. Currently, we have over 100 organizations that we donate to. And anyone watching, that would be civic groups, youth programs, nonprofit organizations, pantries, just about anyone. The only requirement with our donations is it can't be sold. So we want it to be used by people to support an organization. We give to the Downtown Rescue Mission, Kids to Love, Village of Promise, all 12 Boys and Girls Club in North Alabama. And every time we give them something, it's our hopes that they save their budget for their programs and use what we give them to help. So the reason I'm mentioning that is, while we're with those organizations who are helping other people, we want them to know about it, and they help spread the word too. So they put out the word that there's an organization called One Gen Away, and they're doing a mobile food pantry. Here's their website. We're helping you. It may be with clothing or with your mortgage or utility bill, but they can help you with food. So the partners we help donate to directly also promote us to all of their people, the recipients in their organization as well. And then we have a large following of volunteers who show up at each of the distributions themselves. And like the Rotary clubs, they sponsor, but they've been coming to, when they can, of course, to multiple events. So we have a following of people who like doing that. So word of mouth, our social media and website, and of course, in our partners. That's how the word gets out continuously.
That's amazing, Blake. That's great. As we get towards the end, I want to be mindful of your valuable time here. Talk to us a minute about disaster relief. I saw on your website that that's something you help with. And as you mentioned kind of in your initial part of telling us how One Generation got started and really how they got here to North Alabama. And I live in the Harvest community that was hit by those tornadoes years ago. But we do see a lot of natural disasters here in Middle Tennessee and North Alabama and on the Panhandle with storms and floods. Talk to us a minute about how y'all step up and help in those kinds of need.
So going back to the founding organization in the beginning days with Kristen Lane, they were contacted right away once they figured out how to do the mobile distributions. Once they made some contacts on how to get the food, at least the purchase food, very economically. Real quick, people started calling saying we've been hit by this, or floods were several of them in Nashville area. There were some hurricanes and tornadoes, in Texas and Florida. And so I know there was one time in 2000, I think it was around 2011 or 12, actually, they had performed about 30 of these in one day at different places around. Now that was very unusual, but they luckily had contacts and people that were able to help them because of the hurricane area, because it wasn't one community, it was multiple communities that were hit. And so the disaster relief, because the program and the way it's organized, the distributions are very efficient. A lot of local leaders, EMA type organizations, recognize that, and some of them have funding to purchase the food, especially the cheaper it is, the more they can buy for their community.
Right.
And so we are glad to try to respond to when we were asked for that. I know here locally, we partner with the Red Cross quite a bit. They, of course, they have limited funds and resources. Just recently, a small disaster, but nonetheless, there was two of them. There was an apartment fire in the Shoals area that displaced about 100 people, and there was also a fire in the Huntsville area, an apartment complex that displaced quite a few people. Well, they have on-hand resources, but it went real quick because they were putting people in tents and feeding them 3 meals a day. So their resources they had on hand went really quick. Well, luckily, we have great contacts with them. They reached out to us, and right away, we were able to support them with some items and drinks and food until their cavalry arrived, so to speak, with more. That was a small disaster, but nonetheless, it's considered disaster relief. But yes, it started early on, just like when coming to Huntsville in 2011, where the system worked well, the connections worked well. You asked earlier about what we keep on hand. We do try to keep stuff on hand. Our Tennessee warehouse usually keeps quite a bit on hand. It's going out constantly. And of course, the rescued food goes out every day almost. But we do try to keep things on hand for disaster relief because you never know when it's going to happen. And so we're just a phone call away. We kind of a slogan. It's like, make one call to One Gen, and we're going to help any way we can. If not, we'll find a partner. He'll help us do it.
That's awesome. That's great. And just you guys have found a really core need in our community, and you're finding different ways to fill that need directly to the public or to other organizations that support them, and supporting those organizations to allow them to free up to be able to serve other needs, so that it takes that budget concern out of their issues. So I think that's tremendous. As we get ready to wrap up here, Blake, I know you mentioned a couple of times about volunteers. So, and I think I saw something on your website. Is that the best place to do, or to give you guys a call? What's the best place if people, are touched by your story and the story of your organization today, and they want to volunteer at an upcoming mobile pantry? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so one of the easiest ways is onegenaway.com. There's a form there you can sign up. You can pick your state, Tennessee, Alabama, or Florida. We are, of course, are local here in North Alabama, and we send out a little newsletter via Constant Contact about what's upcoming. There are recipients on that page too that wants to know about things. But I mean, our contact information is on the page. If you need to get to me here in Alabama, just call the office and they'll send you right to me. I'm always wanting to talk to people, organizations. We do have financial supporters in all three areas that help support our overhead. The programs that we do, the rescuing that we do, the trucks, the warehouse, everything goes to the people. Our overhead's very extremely low because most of everything we get goes to our programs that we give out. And I will say, I didn't mention this at the beginning, but our slogan, you may have saw on our website, I think it's important. But for the people with food insecurities, we talk about hope, honor, and dignity through food. That is a big push with our founders and our team. It's like, the people who need this, the recipients, we want to give them hope and honor and dignity through food. And the volunteers, which are extremely important, that we always need more of. They help do that too, I see it at the mobile pantries. They are just phenomenal, and they get behind that mission as well. But the website would be the quickest place to go. And if you want to talk to me here locally, they'll get you right to me.
Great. And we'll put the link to the website there. And we had talked earlier that you guys have a really great video that y'all did a little while back that kind of succinctly talks about what we talked about today.
Yes.
We'll put that in the comments in the Facebook feed after we closed out today's show. But Blake, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for what your organization's doing for those in need here in Tennessee and North Alabama and in the Panhandle. And it's just something, as I said, when we kind of got started, it's something that I don't know that we're very aware that need is here. But I appreciate you opening our eyes to that and providing a resource for these people, because they don't want that stress. They have other things that are going on in their life, and taking the stress and anxiety of being able to feed their family is something away from them. It's just a huge thing for those people, and what a blessing. So Blake, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Please check out onegenaway.com and volunteer and support them any way you can. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.